Hello, dear friends. Tolerance becomes a crime when it is applied to evil, said Thomas Mann. Opinion piece. April will be intense. System fragility. Closing of a cycle. Accelerated change. Emotional intensity. Life pushes forward. The cat is out of the bag. Let's start. Lisa Wetzel explains that April is charged with a strong and transformative energy of accelerated change, not necessarily negative, but certainly difficult to ignore. She speaks of a month where everything moves quickly, where situations that were stagnant begin to advance, and where there is a feeling of not being able to continue as we were. This produces decisions, changes of course, or unexpected turns. Lisa predicts a strong separation between the old dense energy and the new, lighter and more aligned frequency in April. This could bring a wave of disruptive awakening, especially towards the end of April and the beginning of May, with sudden shifts in relations, changes in relationships or work, and a greater inclination towards peace, intuition, and authenticity. A broader collective awakening that may be perceptible on a physical, mental, and emotional level. We will experience moments of emotional clarity, lucidity, or moments of revelation. She considers March the beginning of the movement and states that April will accelerate it, with the greatest disruption coming in late April and possibly early May. A month. Her message is that April is not simply more of the same. It is a turning point where many people may feel compelled to change course, simplify their lives, and let go of what feels bothersome or outdated. April pushes us to release what no longer fits, but it is also an opportunity to reorganize your life and make courageous decisions aligned with your life's purpose. It will be a month where everything is felt more intensely, both the good and the uncomfortable. You may experience stronger emotions than usual, which could lead to impulsive reactions or confrontations when past issues resurface. This isn't a month to stay on autopilot, but rather a turning point that compels you to act. If something shifts, observe it before reacting, because not everything requires an immediate response. If there is pressure to decide, take your time, because urgency doesn't always equate to clarity. If strong emotions arise, don't ignore them, but don't let them control you either. Use them as information, not commands. If something ends, it may be an adjustment, not a loss. Sometimes it's reorganization, not disaster. Fragility. Everything seems orderly until it isn't, according to the marketeer. The situation is becoming more fragile with increasing pressure and shifts in volatility. It argues that markets only appear calm on the surface, but underlying pressure is increasing. Volatility is changing and the situation is becoming more fragile. A small disturbance could trigger a collapse faster than expected. The market can remain orderly for a while, but the risk lies in its sudden loss of that order. Everything seems under control, but tensions are building beneath the surface, and when they break, they give no warning. The problem isn't that the optimistic scenario is possible. The problem is believing it's safe, because markets don't change smoothly. Reversals are usually rapid and chaotic, And when everyone is on the same side, the opposite move can be violent. Reset news. Global currencies are gaining ground as pressure mounts on the financial system. The Clarity Act seeks to close banks. This innovation is considered a threat to traditional fractional reserve banking and the control banks exert over the financial system. The Coalition of Wealths wants to unite as many wealths as possible. Many of you will choose to join them, exploring the universe, helping those in need, and granting ascension. You will be angels to beings from other planets. According to Paul Gold Eagle, global attention is increasing and they are spreading in the world is abuzz with discussions about a global financial reset, with gold and asset-backed securities taking center stage. A major global shift is being heralded, with many pointing to a transition to quantum asset systems, along with the emergence of new technologies and structures. Everything is unfolding step by step. For years, financial and media systems have been controlled by powerful interests, but now a new system is being exposed that seeks to rebalance control, increase transparency, and return power to the people. Many see the GISRA program as the foundation of this transition, a turning point toward a different financial future. The process is still developing, but the message is clear. Change is underway, and the world is watching. Mr. Poole summary. Cryptic White House video with a female voice. In quotes, "It's coming soon, right?" Then deleted. 60 million people saw it before it disappeared. The media call it a mistake. A president's signature will be on every dollar bill for the first time in history. It's a takeover of the Federal Reserve. The worthless paper is being marked for disposal before the switch is flipped. They are showing you the end of your world. They are showing the end of their world. Full thought summary. The war and the Epstein case represent a battle for control of humanity. The real reason for the war is an attempt to avoid bankruptcy. Once the dark forces have lost control of money, the White Hats will fix the financial system. According to Joe Kent, people voted for Trump because he promised no more wars and no more bleeding in the Middle East. The Pentagon spent over $21 billion of public money building underground cities. The US brought Iranian oil for the first time since 1996 amid the war with Iran. Isn't that strange? The US needs Iranian light crude to dilute Venezuelan oil enough to make it usable. Iran now has no oil in tankers and no surplus to supply international markets. Gold has lost more than $1,000 Gold has lost more than $1,000 per ounce and silver more than $25 per ounce since this so-called war began. Israel's most advanced air surveillance aircraft disappeared from radar screens after midnight on March 14, 2026. It now has only 2 AWACS aircraft remaining. The Persian Gulf states are revaluing trillions of dollars in overseas sovereign wealth fund holdings. A Dutch lawyer suing the architects of the Great Reset quotes Dr. Francis Boyle, who died mysteriously shortly after agreeing to testify. Middle East. The US is considering sending 10,000 more troops to the Middle East. The Pentagon is considering sending another 10,000 ground troops to the Middle East and is suggesting the seizure of islands controlled by Iran. Iranian television reports that 1 million soldiers have been mobilized. Iran warns that ships crossing the Strait of Hormuz will face serious consequences. Iran calculates its potential revenue from charging tolls in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump extends his ultimatum for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz until April 6th. Tehran calls the attack called off by Trump an attempt to lower the price of oil. Rubio estimates that the war against Iran will be over in a couple of weeks. Israel bombs ballistic missile production sites in Iran. Israel attacks Iranian nuclear facilities. Israel attacks a heavy water plant and uranium oxide factory in Iran. The Israeli Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, declared that his army is on the verge of collapse due to the crisis. Rumors are circulating that Yemen is mobilizing 1 million soldiers for a ground invasion of Israel. Netanyahu admits he fears a ground invasion by Hezbollah forces. Hezbollah claims to have destroyed nearly 100 Israeli Merkava tanks in less than 4 weeks of fighting in southern Lebanon. Following the Iranian attack on Tel Aviv with 500 ballistic missiles, Israel requested assistance from the UN. Emirate pushes for the creation of a security force in the Strait of Hormuz. Torrential rains and flooding in the Emirates. India approves the purchase of Russian S-400 anti-aircraft systems. According to Michael Snyder, calm has been maintained in financial markets by assuring that Iran is defeated and that the war will soon end. But meanwhile, thousands of soldiers are being deployed in the Middle East, and it appears they are preparing for a ground operation. Economy. Wall Street is headed for its 5th consecutive week of losses. Trump signs an emergency order to release cheaper fuel immediately. Iran uses cryptocurrencies to circumvent international sanctions. The price of gold fell 15% due to the conflict in the Middle East. Turkey dumped 58 tons of gold after the start of the war, causing a price collapse. The UN approves a resolution on slavery that calls for reparations. Judge Gammon describes a crisis in the trillion-dollar shadow banking sector. The conflict in Iran is driving a surge in demand for electric vehicles in China. Europe. European stock markets fall. The European Parliament unlocks the digital euro. A German study highlights the shortcomings of electric cars. In 2025, where there were more than 50,000 roadside assistance calls. Spain. The Central Electoral Board suspends the use of digital ID cards for voting. Sánchez chooses Mr. Cuerpo as Vice President and Arcadia España as the new Minister of Finance. Inflation in Spain rises to 3.3% in March. The Bank of Spain raises its growth forecast to 2.3%. The IBEX has lost 8.49% since the war began. Spain agrees with Algeria to increase gas imports. Iran is receptive to any request from Spain to allow passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Americas. The OECD raises its growth forecast for Mexico in 2026. The Mexican Navy is searching for 2 vessels that were carrying humanitarian aid to Cuba. Cuba is trying to locate 2 missing vessels from the humanitarian flotilla. The UN estimates that more than 10,000 Colombians have been recruited as mercenaries. Chilean police disperse protesters in the capital. US court overturns IPF expropriation ruling and annuls Argentina's 16.1 billion fine. Brazil auctions its first concession to reforest the Amazon. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.